See, the air is dry. So it's hot. I mean, it's so hot, but you don't feel like you're sweating because the air's dry. Now, if it could be less as hot out in the east, but it's humid. So you're sweating more. Out here, it's hotter, but the air's dry. So, when the air is dry.
Good morning, sweet world, and welcome to the No Dunks podcast on the Athletic Network. It's Friday, July 19th, 2024. This is The Drop. I'm J.E. Skeets coming at you today on Zoom. You can thank my positive COVID test for that one. And joining me back in the Classic Factory, it's the bearded one, Trey Kirby.
Hey-o.
Hey, yo.
Hey, yo. And making the magic happen, super producer, JD.
Hello.
There he is. There are the guys, again, back in the factory. I'm on Zoom. Apologies for probably blowing my nose 10 times throughout this podcast, maybe coughing. Your boy got sick. I went to Vegas and I got sick. You guys are okay, though?
Doing okay so far, but I'm happy to see somebody going Biden mode around here.
Unbelievable. I woke up on Wednesday. I thought it was just a summer cold. I get one of those a year, especially going from super hot outdoor temperatures to inside air conditioning. I get a summer cold, but Nora's like, you better test. And man, that second pink line, boom, that just popped up right away. It was never in doubt. So, yeah, I got the COVID just like Joe Biden, but we'll be okay. We'll be okay.
That's what this variant is called, I heard. Jovid strain.
That's right. That's
all
right.
the big names.
So, look, we got lots to talk about here. Before we get into it, new merch alert. And this one inspired by our American, Trey Kirby. He said, hey, I need a No Dunks Dream Team 2 inspired t-shirt. So Breaking T coming through with this fire. You can get this on t-shirt or hoodie, toddler sizes, and women's V-neck. Pick your pick. And here, if you order this by Sunday, you can receive it in time for Team USA's first game of the Olympics. But good stuff here, Trey. You happy with this as an American?
Yeah, this is awesome, and also very funny to me when I think about it because, the Clippers did their City Edition uniform last year. Looked a lot like this. And everybody's like, that City Edition jersey looks ridiculous. But when it's Team USA, it looks awesome. So, yeah, get your women's V-necks by Sunday to be ready for the big game starting next weekend.
For sure. All right, on today's drop, we're going to draft the NBA's biggest offseason winners. TK, you and I are going to go 3 rounds deep, picking the teams that we think had the best off seasons. We got to discuss reports that the Warriors are working on a trade for Lauri Markkanen of the Jazz. We'll talk some Team USA. Your team looks good as they continue their exhibition games, and we'll end with some rapid fire fun. But first, Summer League is a week old now. Have you been watching a lot since we left the desert? Are you watching highlights? What are your main takeaways now that we've seen a week of action?
I've been watching a lot of highlights, Skeets, because I am getting unreasonably excited for Matas Buzelis. I don't know that I've ever gone through and watched one prospect's highlight tapes from each and every game, but I love what I see from this guy so far. It's only Summer League. Skeets, when we play basketball Thursday nights, there's a couple of Detroit Pistons fans in attendance, and they are sick that the Pistons took Ron Holland instead of Matas Buzelis. I'm telling these guys, look, it's only Summer League. I'm holding out judgment till his very first regular season game. But at the very least, Buzelis is tall. He's still skinny right now, but he looks to be a legit 6'9", 6'10". He can obviously handle the ball. But the most important thing is the guy plays really tough. He plays through a bunch of contact. He shoots the ball every single time he gets it, and then when he scores, he talks trash to whoever is nearby. I love it. It's exciting times, that the Bulls were able to get this guy who's putting up some of the best highlights from every one of his Summer League games. Seems like he's got a big dunk in every single one so far. So if he ends up being the steal of the draft, which I feel is at least a reasonable outcome at this point that he looks so good so far, I'm excited. I would even consider getting a jersey of a guy wearing number 14. That's been the biggest disappointment so far. 14, not my favorite number.
You don't like that one?
That's too Hornacek coded for me.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, you don't see 14 a lot. Yeah, I would say Buzelis, Reed Shepherd has sort of been the talk of Summer League as a rookie, at least. He was amazing through his first couple of games. I think he's averaging like 25 and 5 with almost 3 steals per game. We talked about him on our Vegas Summer League show. Tristan Da Silva with the Magic's been good. Bub Carrington with the Wizards. Khalil Ware with the Heat as a number 15 pick. He had a great game the other night. But my big takeaway is like, second-year players and third-year guys, you better dominate. And a lot of them are at Summer League. I think Brandon Miller only played 1 game, but he looked good. Jaime Jaquez Jr., Cam Whitmore, Keon Ellis as a third-year guy, Gigi Jackson the second, Scottie Pippen Jr., Jalen Wilson, the Nets sophomore guy. He was awesome on Thursday. He had a 33-point night, hit a game-winning bucket in overtime. So that I'm always like, the rookies are fun. You can get yourself excited about some of them, but it's like these guys that are there for the second and third year, you better sort of be dominating. Otherwise, you're in a lot of trouble, I think, as a future NBA player, because you should sort of kick the ass of a lot of these guys. And most of them, like I just listed, are. Even Leonard Miller, good old Canadian boy. I know he's put together a few solid games for the Wolves. I like him as a big guy. He had a 21-point game and 5 steals and 5 assists and stuff like that. So yeah, that to me, got to keep your eye on. It's like those guys that are second and third year guys that are not dominating, I'm like, that's not good.
Yeah, exactly right. If you are a second year player, you don't want to be playing by the time the second weekend comes around, because you want to have showed up in Las Vegas and proved to everybody, I'm too good for this league, so I'm going to go out, tear it up for a couple of games, and then get sat down so that everybody knows my place is established here. And I think we've seen some pretty solid performances from these sophomores here. When it comes to third-year players, if you're not good, it might be over for you. But I think a pretty decent showing for the second-year guys, and there's been some decent rookies as well. I think the Wizards fans have to be in a really weird position right now, because you got Bub Carrington. He looks awesome. He might be your next D'Angelo Russell. I don't know if that's a compliment, but if he turns out that from the 14th pick, you're loving life. On the other side, their second pick, Alex Sarr, just had an 0 for 15 game at 7 feet tall. That's hard to do. Seems like this guy just wants to take 3-pointers. He had one that rattled in and out, and all the other misses were pretty brutal. Looks like he's got a long way to go offensively, but the defense is pretty solid. It's just hard to see him developing a huge offensive game this year when the backcourt is going to probably be Bub Carrington, Bilal Coulibaly, and Jordan Poole. These guys aren't necessarily going to be setting him up perfectly come regular season time. But man, when you get a House of Highlights low light mix, not good. Not good at all. I watched it, though.
I couldn't believe it. You did watch it? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I was like, I got to see this. Low light's rare.
Because wasn't it like a couple days prior, House of Highlights had the Bronny James Jr. 2 points besides on the thumbnail. And you're like, oh, my God, what are they doing? Obviously leaning into that story. And then, Alex Sarr follows it up with the 0 points on the thumbnail, going 0 for 15. And then I know he didn't even have a great game after that. I think he only scored 1 bucket. So, this guy's like, I don't know what he is, like 1 for 25 right now. But, all of this stuff, especially rookies, it's Summer League. I mean, you don't want to see that, but you can't like freak out over 2 or 3 games. You just can't. And this is like weird basketball too. I mean, you watched a lot of it over the years. It's tough to like put too much stock into it, either good guys or bad performances. That's the truth. It's weird basketball.
It's weird basketball, and I think in general, Summer League tends to favor guards who know what they're doing, because they're going to have the ball a lot. They're going to be put in a lot of situations where they get to make plays, and if they're making the right plays, they look good. That's Bub Carrington. I also think Summer League can be tough for big guys who don't necessarily know where their shots are coming from, and I think that's exactly what you're seeing from Alex Sarr here. But Trae Young was terrible. His first Summer League, he looked like maybe the worst player at Summer League, and he's turned out to be an all-NBA player. I don't know if that's going to happen for Alex Sarr, but, he already changed his number. 12, now he's switching to 20. Things are trending up for him, perhaps.
There you go. Yeah, I think, you could go back and look at, like, guys that have turned into all-NBA guys, all-star guys that struggled or looked like crap. Like Jaylen Brown, I remember, was like, he was brutal at Summer League when he first was there, and look what he's turned into. He's had quite a month, Jaylen Brown, too. All right, let's get to drafting the NBA's best off seasons. Now we're looking at teams here, TK. I'm going to give you the first pick. We're going to do 3 rounds. So we'll each pick 3 teams. Where are you starting with this one? I have an idea that you're going to go between one or two teams, but what's your first pick in drafting the NBA's biggest winners this offseason?
This is complicated, Skeets, because I got two factors here. Number one, I only came up with like 5 winners. 5 actual winners. And I know we're doing 6 picks, so that 6th pick is going to be a little dicey if it ends up being me. The other question I have, like, when you're looking at offseason winners and losers, are you basing it on who is best positioned coming into this next regular season? Like, who made the best moves trying to win a championship in 2025? Or is this the best moves holistically for your franchise over the course of 5 seasons? Because I think that kind of changes the list of things. I erred on the side of who's trying to win right now. And that's why my number 1 pick, not a surprise, it's the Oklahoma City Thunder. They came in, they went through the playoffs last year, had a decent performance, came up a little short against the Mavericks. They knew they needed to upgrade their center spot. They needed to get more rebounding from there and more physicality. They also wanted a little bit more defense and shooting, which they got in the Alex Caruso trade. They kept all of their picks. A shame for Bulls fans, of course, but perfect for Thunder fans. They also still have future cap flexibility because Isaiah Hartenstein's contract has an option year the same year that Chet Holmgren and J-Dub are going to be eligible for extensions. So it seems to me like they beefed up their rotation coming into 24-25, and they're still set up so perfectly for the future. OKC, I imagine, is everybody's first or second winner of the offseason because they came into the summer with the plan. They executed it perfectly, probably even better than they were thinking. They got off the Giddey contract. It didn't cost them anything to do, and they still improved the team. So great stuff from Sam Presti.
Yeah, I thought you would go with either OKC or probably the team I'll take first when we get to me here. But just to sort of drive that point home about the Thunder, they fixed 2 pretty glaring playoff issues for their first go. Lack of size. They go and get Hartenstein. And then Josh Giddey sort of struggling as an outside shooter. They trade him out for Caruso, obviously a defensive stud, but you have to respect his 3-point shot. And they also signed team-friendly deals, right, for Isaiah Joe, Aaron Wiggins. Maybe those guys, one of those guys will be moved in a future sort of deal. But yeah, good stuff there from the Thunder. I thought you would probably go with them. Or my first pick, Philadelphia 76ers. Daryl Morey cooked this summer. He really did. He entered with a boatload of cap space, and he came out of it with the best gettable forward on the market in Paul George. He re-signed Tyrese Maxey, got that taken care of. He got a pretty capable backup for Joel Embiid in Andre Drummond. And he did pretty good in beefing up the supporting cast when you're talking about Caleb Martin, maybe Eric Gordon, and then with the draft pick, Jared McCain. Good stuff from Morey. I mean, there was a summer where this could have gone very, very poorly, despite having all that cap space. And in the end, that feels like an A to me. And that's why it's like Thunder, Sixers. It's like, I think those are going to be 2 teams at the top of a lot of people's lists. You agree or disagree?
Oh, totally. I think that they would be near the top of people's list if it was simply just Tobias Harris out, Paul George in.
Yeah.
I also think they would probably be at the top of people's list if it was Tobias Harris out, Caleb Martin, Andre Drummond, Eric Gordon in. Like, that's an improvement of the rotation, I think, for Philadelphia, considering the way things went at the end of the season. So the fact that they were able to do both of those avenues, like, they did a great job bringing in vets with the leftover cap space, and they got the best free agent in Paul George, and they increased their social media presence, bringing in the premier TikToker in the NBA, Jared McCain, and their other rookie, his last name is Bona, which is just going to give us years and years of jokes. So I love it.
True.
Yeah.
He's
this guy's a Bona.
He's a Bona. He's like Paul Reed 2.0 too.
Yeah.
Paul Reed's out, but this guy just feels like him. Just Jared McCain and his TikToks. Why is it that every TikTok I see of this guy, he's just doing the same fucking dance? He doesn't do anything except the same thing.
I agree. So I have to assume that's like his signature dance. I don't know. But I saw he tried to get Buzelis to do it, and that was the first strike I saw against Buzelis. I was like, ooh, not a lot of rhythm from my guy in the back here. He's not catching on to the electric slide that quickly.
Wasn't it? It was McCain. It was Buzelis, and was it AJ Johnson? I think.
I think
it was
so.
A Bucks player. Yeah. I saw that one too. But it's Jared McCain doing the same dance every single time. I'm like, okay, do something else, man. Let's bring it. All right, so Let's get to your second pick here in drafting the NBA's biggest offseason winners. I'm excited to see where you go because you're right. Those two felt obvious, Thunder, Sixers. Now, where does Trey go here with the third pick overall?
Yeah, I think we are probably, I don't know, is this the end of the first tier or is this the very start of the second tier? To me, third pick, New York Knicks. Basically bringing in Mikal Bridges is their main move here. Obviously, Hartenstein out, which is a bummer for them. They're going to need to find a backup center or just decide to roll with Jericho Sims, bring back Precious Achiuwa, who they haven't signed yet. But they traded a ton for Mikal Bridges, but they're also counting on friendship. It's rare. And it's expensive because they spent 5 first-round picks on Mikal Bridges. And from an expensive perspective, expensive for Jalen Brunson, too. His buddy comes into town. Suddenly he's given back $100 million to the New York Knicks. But I think the Knicks made awesome moves. They couldn't wait around forever for Giannis to become available or for Karl Anthony Towns to become available. Right. Obviously, Mitchell went back to the Cavs. Embiid seems pretty locked in with the 76ers, at least for right now. They had held on to their assets for such a long time, and they had such great success last season with 3 of the 4 Nova Knicks. They brought in, I guess, probably the number 2 guy of those 4 in Mikal Bridges. Everybody assumes the fit is going to be perfect. They also were able to re-sign OG Anunoby. They got the deal done with Brunson. So I think New York has had a really, really solid offseason. I don't necessarily know if this instantly puts them into the upper level of title contenders. We just got to see who's healthy at the end of the season for this team, just like we do for the 76ers. But I like what the Knicks did. They are a team to be reckoned with, and they still got decent flexibility going forward with Brunson taking a discount.
Yeah, that's good. I almost wanted to lump together the Knicks and the Nets, because it was a pretty good package that they got back from Mikal Bridges when you went through all those picks. And like, they've picked a direction. Brooklyn Nets have, obviously. They're going to be probably one of the worst teams. They're going to sag for flag. They're going to be in the pooper for Cooper, whatever we're calling it. So you almost have to be like, okay, they've picked a direction. They got a great haul back from Mikal Bridges in sending him to his buddies. I almost wanted to lump those two teams together, but I thought the Knicks would be on your list. I guess still waiting on the backup center, right? Or who's going to be one of the bigs there behind Mitchell Robinson, who's like perpetually hurt. Is it going to be Precious Achiuwa? I don't think that's official yet, right? He hasn't re-signed with them. And maybe they're still looking for someone. And I wonder, like, you said like they didn't want to wait around for the big superstar name, probably for 2 reasons, right? One, they maybe feel like they have their superstar. It's Jalen Brunson. Like, the guy is amazing. I know he's not in the same mold as like a Giannis or a Luka or something like that, but the guy was a top 5 MVP guy. So maybe they feel like they have that already. And the other is, can you still make moves with Julius Randle and his contract and some of these other pieces if there's a disgruntled player in market X that wants to come join the Villanova boys? So we will see. But I like their offseason too. I think the pushback would be, they gave up too much for Mikal Bridges and then maybe paid too much to OG Anunoby. But then, you consider the discounts that Brunson's on, that maybe Bridges will be on. That's maybe not that big a deal.
Downsides of nepotism, Skeets. Sometimes you got to overpay for stuff like that. Do you think the Knicks could win the title this season?
No.
Same.
I don't.
But they're closer.
They're closer. Yeah. They are closer. Like you were saying, it's like where do you put them in the tier ranking? I think once we do our tier rankings, I'm sure on one of the podcasts this summer, they won't be S tier for championship contenders, but they'll probably be on that next level and sort of knocking on that door. All right, my next pick here. Couple teams to pick from. I think this is where we might disagree, because if I remember, you weren't as high on their offseason as I was when we first talked this through. I'm going to give the Orlando Magic as a winner of the offseason. I really liked what they did, because they didn't go nuts. They didn't try for a Paul George. They didn't go crazy for a Trae Young or anything. They went as their notable addition, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. They got this rookie and Tristan da Silva too. We'll see if he can play. He's a 4-year college guy, so maybe he actually will have a bit of a role. He can shoot. We saw him here in Summer League. Looks good. But I just like how they are just, the Magic are just like, we like our team. We're knocking on 50 wins already. We have an identity. That's defense. We think Banchero's going to get better. We think Franz Wagner's finally going to be able to hit a shot. Let's continue to build with this team. Mo Wagner back, Gary Harris back, Goga back. They all re-signed. Jonathan Isaac, they renegotiated and extended his deal on a team-friendly 5-year, $84 million contract. which is good. It descends annually. I love that they could be a team where you look at like the over-unders heading into a season that they might be undervalued. And we've seen this before. I saw Michael Pina write about this. 2 years ago, it was the Grizzlies that were sort of like, they might be a 500 team, and then they exceeded expectations. That was a 56-win team. Last year, it was the Thunder. They were around like a 44, 45-win team when you were looking at the over-unders. They were a 57-win team. Could that be the Magic? I think 57, 56 wins might be too big a jump, but they should be a 50-win-plus team. And again, they have an identity because they're a defensive-minded team. So I'm going to go with them. What's your take on that? Because, again, I don't think you were as high on KCP maybe as I was, but what do you think about the Magic almost – it's not slow playing it, but getting a contributing guy and a vet in KCP?
You can't argue with getting KCP. Like, there weren't a lot of great free agents this offseason. Paul George, the best to switch teams, and then maybe KCP right after that. So I think a great job for the Magic to get him, and he does fit with them perfectly, bringing the outside shooting. We already know that he's a defender there as well. I just kind of feel like their backcourt is still pretty unproven. It's going to likely be Anthony Black. Maybe they're able to bring back Markelle Fultz. He plays there as well. KCP's not a guy who's going to really go and get his own offense. His scoring, a lot of it came from playing off of Nikola Jokic with the dribble handoffs. There's not necessarily that type of player on the Magic as well. So I think they did a good job. They're definitely not going to take a step back, but I don't know that KCP is like the biggest needle mover out there. It was a bummer for the Lakers when they lost him, but KCP didn't do anything to help the Wizards win. It wasn't until he got to Denver that people started reassessing where he stands in the NBA. So I had them on my list of teams that I might have picked for my sixth winner. I just think, they came in with a lot of cap space. Getting Paul George obviously would have been better for them, but he used them for leverage. So they came for the next best guy, and that was KCP. So I think a good get for them, but I kind of think the Magic are going to be about the same team they were. Like, if they win 50 games, that would be awesome. They won 47 last year. Is KCP worth 3 wins? We'll see.
I sort of think he will be. They were the third best defense in the league last year. They were the best defense after the All-Star break. And their big thing was shooting, right? Spacing. I mean, they were 22nd offensive rating, near bottom in both three-point volume and accuracy. KCP is going to help you on that end in terms of obviously his percentage from deep. He's been a really good three-point shooter, and he doesn't obviously limit you defensively. He's like one of the best guys that you can throw on a perimeter player. So I just like they are absolutely banking on Paolo Banchero continuing to get better and Franz Wagner continuing to get better. And I sort of like that. They didn't like, if you went and got Paul George, you might sort of like stifle one or two of those guys, in all honesty. So I sort of like it. I like the direction they're going, and they are running back so many of their guys. Like I said, like continuity will be huge for them, and sometimes it gives you a little bit leg up on some of these teams to start the season. All right, final pick. Where are you going, TK, with the 5th pick overall?
Skeets, did you like going to the thrift store when you were a little younger, going and looking through all the racks, finding weird stuff?
I still like doing it.
Yeah,
I was, until I got sick. Nora and I were going to go to some like antique sort of thing this week, but it didn't happen.
I love it too. Vintage shopping, it's very good, and that's why I have the Milwaukee Bucks as my pick, because I think they went shopping at the thrift store. Didn't have a lot of money to spend, but they found some good stuff. DeLon Wright, he's a vintage graphic T-shirt. Everybody likes him. Taurean Prince, he's something you can wear as a costume, useful in the right situations. Gary Trent Jr., he's a way too big Burberry trench coat. Doesn't really fit you, but you're surprised to see it there at the thrift store, so you have to get it because you're like, hey, it's Burberry, So when I look at what the Bucks did, they're all veteran minimum guys. Like I always say, I said it with the Suns last year, if you're available for a veteran minimum, there's a reason for that. But when you look at who the Bucks were playing in the playoffs last year, it was like a combination of Cam Payne and Patrick Beverley. Danilo Gallinari was getting serious minutes for this team, and Malik Beasley. They've turned those guys into Wright, Prince, and Trent, who I do think are slightly better players. So Milwaukee didn't have a lot of options this summer, and I think they did a pretty good job for having to kind of shop in the bargain bins.
Yeah, that's a great pick, especially when you consider what they were able to do. And I love a lot of those guys. I mean, DeLon Wright, I'm a huge fan of DeLon Wright, and he probably will play for them even in postseason. Gary Trent Jr., I know we were going to talk about later in the show, but man, to get him on the vet minimum. Like, oh boy, I don't know if Gary Trent Jr. is having a talk with his agent. Has he moved on from his agent? Because he sort of cost himself probably a decent amount of money over the last 2 years. And and Taurean Prince, yeah, I mean, sure.
He's better off the bench.
He's a guy. Yeah, for sure.
He's a funny hat or like a cool jacket. You're like, oh, this will be helpful.
Yeah.
I can go with Inspector Gadget.
All right, so final pick. And like you said it, like, you know, in terms of like almost like A grades or really good off seasons, you feel like you were scrambling for a 6? Is that where you got to at this point? Were there any teams before I make my pick that sort of were on your list?
Yeah. I had 4 more teams who I would have considered for the last pick, and we'll see who you go with. But I have the Spurs, the Mavericks, the Pelicans, and the Nets are in the mix for the 6th team for me.
Okay, you named a lot of the teams on my list, especially the Spurs and the Mavericks. They're probably at the top of my list. I already talked a little bit about the Nets. I think I'd go with Dallas if I'm drafting here. Again, and I like the Spurs, what they did with Chris Paul and Harrison Barnes and more future pick swaps. Like, they're playing the long game with Wembanyama. They're going to be better. They'll just be a more competent team with especially a point guard. But I will go Dallas as the 6th pick here. I think it depends on if you believe in Klay Thompson, sort of like having a bounce back year or almost a revenge year, like you forgot about me year. If you think he's washed, then you maybe don't think this is a great offseason. You know, they lose Derek Jones Jr., the Mavs do. They lose Tim Hardaway Jr., they lose Josh Green, but in comes Klay Thompson, Najee Marshall, and Quentin Grimes. Again, I think, and I do believe in Klay, sort of as a pissed off Klay, that he's going to be huge alongside Luka and Kyrie as just a guy that can stretch the floor. If you believe in that, that's a pretty good offseason for a team that just went to the finals in working around the margins. And then you're banking on Lively being better and those guys that you made deals for at the trade deadline and PJ and Gafford, they'll be better with camp. So I'll go with the Mavericks. I'm glad you had them on your short list.
Yeah, I think definitely a worthy pick. To me, the Mavericks are like 50-50. They're better because they got Klay Thompson, and he can kind of potentially raise the ceiling. We've seen him perform in the playoffs time and time again. He can still shoot the ball, even if he's not a 45% three-point shooter. A 38% three-point shooter who people respect, like he shoots 45, is pretty solid. And then 50%, they might be the exact same style of team who catches some good breaks, who gets some great shooting from a PJ Washington or Klay, gets the right matchups in the playoffs. They still got Luka. They still got Kyrie. As long as both of those guys are healthy, I think Dallas is one of the top 4 teams in the Western Conference. And then you throw in Klay. He could maybe raise their ceiling, and he can definitely win you a game in the playoffs or a quarter in the playoffs. Whatever he ends up being. So I think they did a good job, and I was definitely considering them for my last pick as well. What do you think about Klay wearing number 31?
Yeah. We got some weird ass numbers here. I guess Reggie Miller. Shout out to
exactly.
Reggie.
Yeah. Reggie Miller, Jason Terry, he said, were the inspirations.
Oh yeah, Jason Terry. That which is funny. I brought up the idea of Klay Thompson trying to be Jason Terry 2.0 in Dallas. I brought this up a long time ago. I can't remember even if I said it on a podcast or just talked to you guys about it. That idea that Terry was like, you know, he was a flamethrower for that Dirk-led Mavericks team that won the championship off the bench. I mean, he would come off the bench, but he would play like sort of Ginobili-like minutes. He played a lot. So, I mean, it sounds like Klay's going to start, but that is a possibility if it doesn't work out well with him in the starting lineup. So, yeah, 31. Is Klay going to get the tattoo like Jason Terry got too?
It worked once for Jason Terry, but then he decided to push the boundaries. Got a second Larry O'Brien tattoo. Never paid off. But still got the one. So you're like, okay, cool. I got my pre-championship and my post-championship.
Yeah, that's a cocky move there.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to talking about Team USA here a little bit, because they had a couple games this week. They beat Australia, though it got very close against Australia. But then on, I guess it was Wednesday, they sort of crushed Jokic and Serbia. So they improved to 3-0. How you feeling about your American boys here and how they look this week?
Hey, second night of a back-to-back for Serbia. You can't take anything from this game. But, I mean, Team USA, they are good. They just have a deep team full of all NBA players, and that is truly the advantage for the USA. When their starters come out, they bring in 2 first-team all NBA defenders in Bam Adebayo and Anthony Davis, and those two have been like such a differentiating factor to me. Bam has been playing incredible in this preseason Olympics sort of deal we got going on here. AD, I feel like, is dominating every minute he's on the court. Tyrese Halliburton comes in, the ball moves like crazy, just like it did in the World Cup. The Embiid fit is weird in the starting lineup so far, but Steve Kerr says we're sticking with it, and we're going to hopefully figure it out. And there are definitely going to be times that the U.S. is going to need a huge guy like Embiid, whether it's playing against Jokic in their first game of the actual Olympic group stages, running into Wemby and Rudy Gobert further on down the line. Even like Zubats is a huge guy, right? Like there's just a lot of size out there that it will be helpful to have Joel Embiid. But thus far, he hasn't been one of their best players. And Team USA, you know, basically since 2008 has played small ball. And that's not the way Embiid plays, but they still got a little bit of time to figure it out. And at the very least, he's huge. Even if he's not scoring efficiently, he's able to just stand under the rim in FIBA rules and be a big guy down there. So not impressive, I didn't think, against Australia, but as a Bulls fan, I now have to talk up Josh Giddey's summer performances. Man, this guy, you put the ball in his hands, he's electric. Team USA did pull out the win. Then they dominated a team who everybody's assuming will be pretty solid in Serbia, though they're doing weird stuff. Bogdanovic didn't play. Jokic played 3 straight quarters and then sat in the 4th, so you can't take a ton away from it. But Team USA, to me, seems to be getting better as time goes on here. Encouraging.
Yeah, I mean, it's just unreal when they go to their bench and Bam and AD and then shooters come in. It's like, oh my God. Like every one of these games sort of feels the same, where it's like, oh, all right, you know, Canada hanging around. Oh, okay, Serbia. It was like a 40-40 game, right? At one point there, like 4 minutes to go in the second quarter. And, you know, then Curry had a 4-point play and Edwards hit a 3. And, you know, suddenly it's like a 14-point lead at halftime. Then they come out in the third quarter and rip off another run. And suddenly it's out of hand. And, yeah, you can sit down Jokic. But, man, Bam looked awesome against Serbia. 3 3-pointers. That was huge. The U.S. hit 16 total. So good luck when they're hitting that many threes. You just have no chance, in my opinion, especially with the defense. And that's the other part. Like, it's so wild to see someone like Devin Booker look like sort of like a lockdown defender, because you're like, he doesn't need to really worry about the offensive end. And you're like, oh, when he wants to, a lot of these guys who are usually tasked with having to carry their team offensively, not in this case on Team USA, like they can be like, just like extremely good perimeter defenders. And that to me is what Kerr keeps talking about. Like, we're going to win these games with defense. Like, because, you know, in these one and done games, when you get into the knockout round, it's like, you know, you might have one of those nights where the shot's not falling. The 3-pointer's not falling. You're going to have to win with defense. And that to me has been the most impressive part. That Australian game, they were up huge. They took their foot off the gas. Then it was turnover city there. And the you know, the Aussies got back into the game. It was like a 4 or 5 point game sort of late, but that to me was more just them sort of taking their foot off the gas. But yeah, they look awesome. But I gotta say, I need your Bulls to go get Jock Landale. Him and Giddy, man. Those guys were cooking. They had a nice little 1-2 punch.
Meet me at the trap. It's going down. Big Jock in Chicago? I'll be okay with that, as long as he's not taking minutes from Jalen Smith. But yeah, I'm looking forward to the Olympic tournament. It's going to be really fun because I feel like we're getting competitive games. We're getting, you know, the teams are playing hard against each other, but there's certainly another level that all of these squads can go to.
Yeah, that's right. And you did say, I mean, you slipped it in there almost as a joke, but it was a back-to-back situation for Serbia. No Bogdanovic, no Milutinov. He didn't play. He's a big dude for them who's really good. So, and they maybe don't want to tip their hand at all.
Yeah.
Jokic, you know, had a bad game for him, 6 of 19, so only 16 and 11. So we'll see here. I'm very excited for, obviously, Olympic play when these games matter. I will say my final thought, I wish Halliburton would chuck on a white headband, because we could have a full 5 white headbands off the bench, because you got Bam wearing one, Anthony Davis wearing one, Booker wearing one, Drew Holiday wearing one, and then Halliburton's usually playing with those guys, but he's keeping it headbandless.
Keeping it bandless.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll have a chat. Where are they at now? London, I think.
Yes.
Team USA is. So maybe they'll be able to stop by whatever the London equivalent of a Dick's Sporting Goods is. I'm sure they got to go out shopping for their headbands. They can't just call them in. But it would be a good look, harkening back to the days of the Jailblazers when everybody would wear a headband. That's what got me started wearing headbands back in the day. So maybe there's some young, impressionable kid out there watching the USA second stringers say, whoa, I could be just like that. My last takeaway, I guess Anthony Edwards is not a liar. He came into training camp saying, I think I'm the number one option. Everybody's like, wow, this guy, the confidence on him, playing with Steph, playing with LeBron, Embiid, eventually Kevin Durant, and he's leading Team USA in scoring. Yeah. What a beast. I love this guy.
Yeah, he's backing up that talk for sure. It was good to see Curry have a good game too. He's sort of been really quiet through those first two games against Canada and Australia, but yeah, he was on fire there against Serbia. Yeah, didn't Ant say he could beat everybody in swimming too and stuff like that? Like,
yeah.
Guy's confident he can.
He's like, all the big guys, they can't swim.
Yeah, he's probably right.
Yeah, I do feel like he was sleeping on LeBron because Carmelo tells the story about like the banana boat days. LeBron jumped in to save him when Melo was having some trouble in the water. So we know LeBron's got some skills. You can't count him out. You know, we did a LeBron versus a horse in the Olympics.
Oh, yeah.
I guess in 2010. I don't know if a horse versus LeBron in a sprint race in the pool came up. But if it was the three of them, a horse, LeBron, and Anthony Edwards, I'm tuning in.
Yeah, for sure. Let's make that happen. And just sort of related Team USA news here. I don't know if you saw this, but Clippers president of basketball ops, Lawrence Frank, said the team was, quote, very disappointed with USA Basketball's decision to replace Kawhi Leonard on the Olympic team roster last week. Obviously, Derek White taking his spot. In a statement released last Wednesday, Team USA implied that Kawhi wasn't on the team in a move that was influenced by the Clippers after seeing how he was moving and playing during camp in Las Vegas. So Lawrence Frank here, Trey, is like sort of calling bullshit on that. This is a little weird here, this whole Kawhi leaving the team. And it's like, what was the reason?
Yeah, episode 2 of Frank Talk with Lawrence Frank. First of all, he had to refute everything Paul George said in his podcast. Now he's coming out and taking down what Grant Hill and Steve Kerr had to say about Kawhi Leonard. So, I don't know. It's just a weird story that both sides are like, we're doing it for him, you know. We want him to. We thought he'd be able to play, the Clippers say. Team USA is saying, they said he couldn't. So was he rusty? Was he out of shape? Was he sore after these practices and they didn't want to risk it? Going to Paris and finding out he couldn't play? Was Kawhi like worried about his role on this team since he was going to be behind Kevin Durant to begin with? He's not even there yet. Had been behind Jason Tatum so far. I don't know what's going on, but it's weird to get two sides of this story for just sending a guy home. You know, like Kevin Love got sent home from the Olympics, and they just said he wasn't in the proper amount of shape that he needed to be in. So I wonder if it's the same thing with Kawhi. Who knows? But if you're the Clippers, I'm sure they are disappointed, but they also need him to be healthy for next season, so they can't be that upset about it.
Yeah, for sure. All right, moving on, let's get to some other NBA news. The Clippers and Jazz have agreed to a sign and trade deal involving Russell Westbrook, who is expected to join the Nuggets after Utah waives the former MVP. The Clips will receive guard Chris Dunn from the Jazz for Russ, a second-round pick swap, and some sweet, sweet cash. Your takeaway here, Trey, on this sign and trade deal, and really Westbrook ending up in Denver in all likelihood. And do you think that works? What's your takeaway?
My first takeaway from this is that it reminded me of when you'll see somebody on Twitter being like, look at how confused the AI is by what people are tweeting about. Because we have already seen Russell Westbrook replace Kentavious Caldwell-Pope for a team that recently won a championship. We've already seen the Utah Jazz waive Russell Westbrook after a trade. So it feels like those somehow got into ChatGPT and we came up with a completely new thing of Russell Westbrook getting traded to the Jazz once again, getting waived and going to replace Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. I don't know, Skeets. I'm not a guy that thinks Westbrook is helping a team win a championship. I think he could probably be valuable enough for the Nuggets off the bench. They've got a lot of unproven guys. He'll give them a bit of a curveball with the speed and intensity with which he plays. He's still a good rebounder. They need somebody to be a playmaker, I think, on that second unit. And if there's anybody that you would think would be able to get the best out of Russell Westbrook, it would be LeBron James. Oh, wait, sorry, my bad. That was when he was on the Lakers and everybody was saying it was going to work. It didn't. Maybe with Jokic, it could work. He's excited about having Westbrook join the team, which LeBron was excited about Westbrook joining the team as well. I don't know. I don't think he'll play in the playoffs, so I don't really think it matters all that much for this Nuggets team.
Yeah, Tony Jones at The Athletic, he had an article on whether or not he thought Westbrook could help Denver. And one of my favorite lines from Tony's article was, quote, Westbrook has strengths as a player that the Nuggets roster doesn't have. If managed correctly, Westbrook can help keep Denver in championship contention and maybe even vault the Nuggets back to the front of the line. The bad news, Westbrook is like a gremlin when fed after midnight. If not managed correctly, all hell can break loose. Love that from Tony. A lot of truth to that. And again, like, Westbrook can give you, off the dribble rim pressure. Like, he will attack, obviously, the rim. He is a bit of a regular season innings eater, so maybe that helps keep Jokic and Murray a little fresher as the season goes on and more for the playoffs. And, Westbrook's, he's a little nasty. And there's a lot of talk that the Nuggets lost that after Bruce Brown, who sort of was their guy, sort of their vocal, sort of like cocky guy. And that's sort of how Westbrook holds himself. So, maybe he fits into that role. But yeah, expectations have to be so low for this. He's just so significantly past his prime, and he can't shoot. Westbrook used to be like pretty damn good at like that 15-foot jumper, He just can't shoot anymore, and that's like obviously not even considering the 3-point shot. So I don't know. Maybe as an innings eater, sure. And as a bit of like a guy that can still attack and, like you said, rebound and push the ball, sure. But again, I wouldn't expect too much.
The Nuggets shipped Reggie Jackson to Charlotte, so they needed a backup point guard. Murray has gotten banged up in the past, missing a few games here and there with sprained ankles and something like that. So you're right. He will be an innings eater, I assume, for Denver in the regular season. But I don't know. Summer is the only time when you can possibly talk yourself into Westbrook having an influence, because I love Tony Jones. The guy's a great pickup basketball player, but I don't think that signing Westbrook to be your backup point guard elevates them in any way in the Western Conference. It's just filling out a roster.
I saw somebody in the No Dunks Discord, though, putting a little coin on Westbrook for 6th man of the year at plus 3,300. Okay. I was like, whoa, okay. At least you got the odds to play with.
Good value.
Good value on that, but I don't think I'd be making that one. All right, moving on here. We got the Utah Jazz and the Golden State Warriors. They've reached an impasse, at least for now, in trade talks with Lauri Markkanen. The holdup is possibly around the inclusion of Brandon Podziemski and draft picks in a potential deal. This is according to Shams. The Jazz have asked for Podziemski and several unprotected picks and swaps in a trade. The Warriors are open to a deal involving Podziemski or significant draft compensation, but not both. So there's a holdup here on how much sort of Danny Ainge, and Danny Granger on my mind. Danny Ainge is asking for when it comes to Lauri Markkanen. Do you think this is something that they're ultimately going to, come to an agreement on, Trey, in terms of the players, the young players, and then the draft picks that would be going back for a potential Lauri Markkanen? What do you think?
I don't think this deal is going to happen. I just think that Danny Ainge is going to ask for more than the Warriors are willing to give up, because basically the way this trade reads is we don't want to get Paul George Shai Gilgeous-Alexandered here. We don't want to give you a ton of draft picks and also this young player who could really turn into something. Like Podziemski's probably going to start for the Warriors this year with Klay Thompson going out. He'll probably be the 2 guard. He had a really solid rookie season in Golden State, can shoot it from outside, like a surprisingly great rebounder for a guy who is not all that big, and he's got a couple of years less experience than Jonathan Kuminga, even though he's only 6 months younger than Jonathan Kuminga. That's crazy to me, but it does mean that Kuminga is going to have to get paid quickly. So I think that from the Jazz perspective, they want Podziemski because he's might have a little bit brighter future than Kuminga. I guess that's probably a toss-up there, but he's definitely getting paid 2 years after Kuminga would be, and that's probably also why the Warriors would prefer to keep Podziemski than Kuminga. So to me, it just seems like the Jazz are going to want so much for Markkanen, and that's every bit of reporting is like they want to keep him unless the offer completely overwhelms them. It doesn't seem to me like the Warriors are going to want to blow them away with an offer because maybe they'll take their chances that the Jazz want to tank in the second half of the season. So Markkanen can sign his big extension on August 6th, still be eligible to be traded come February 6th. Maybe at that point the Jazz are looking at the standings saying, we're not necessarily where we want to be. There's a big white guy at the top of the draft this year and we could have a chance to go get him. Maybe then they decide to tank and trade Markkanen, but it just doesn't seem like it's going to happen to me. Danny Ainge, this reads to me like a leak trying to get the Warriors to kind of like bid against themselves for Lauri Markkanen.
Yeah, Shams reporting said they discussed a proposal around Moses Moody, multiple first-round picks, multiple pick swaps, and multiple second-round picks. Okay, that was from the Warriors side of things. The Jazz, though, are asking in return for basically all their young talent and all their draft capital. So we're talking Moody, Kuminga, Podziemski, along with all those picks. Like that, okay, that seems excessive there, Danny. But yeah, can they come to an agreement in the middle? Like, would you trade, hypothetically, if you were the Warriors right now, would you trade Kuminga, some salary filler like Gary Payton II, and then most of your first-round picks and swaps for Lauri Markkanen? Would you do that?
Kuminga's the big piece going back?
Kuminga's the big piece and a lot of draft capital.
I'm a Kuminga fan, but I think I would do it if I'm Golden State, but that's going to kind of be the decision for them. Do they think that a team that's based around Steph Curry and Lauri Markkanen offensively, throw in Draymond defensively, do they think that's a title team? I don't. I think they would definitely be like a locked-in playoff team, which is better than they have been the past couple of seasons. But do I think Lauri puts them into the realm of the Thunder, the Nuggets? You probably would throw in the Timberwolves, the Mavericks, like the top four of the Western Conference. Probably not, but you could also make an argument they owe it to Steph to trade everything in the future to try and win a title while he's still around.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, this is where you're looking at the landscape of the West and his age, Curry, and still the level he plays at, and you're going, well, what are we just going to wait and hope that Kuminga and Podziemski and maybe Moody like blossom suddenly into like all NBA guys to play alongside Curry and Draymond? Like, it's so unlikely. And not to say like Lauri Markkanen, I'm with you. Like, if you made that deal, I'm not like, oh, Warriors are championship favorites. I mean, I'm almost to the point where Lauri Markkanen's becoming a little too overrated, I think, just when you're looking at the landscape of possible guys that can be got. He's good. Don't get me wrong. I think it'd be interesting to see him in that system. He's not the greatest passer and all the movement that they run with the Warriors. I think that would be an adjustment. But again, that deal that I threw at you, again, it would be either Kuminga and or Podziemski. It'd be one of those two guys. And then it would be salary filler, and then it would be picks. Like, I guess I probably would do that if I were the Warriors to get Lauri Markkanen to help our chances at least alongside Curry.
Yeah, I can definitely see the argument, and I think that Markkanen would be an awesome fit because I think part of the reason he's been so successful with the Jazz is that they play a 5-out system, which gives him a lot of space to actually be able to attack. He can score off screens, he can score off catch and shoot, he puts the ball in his hands and runs the court. I think that would still be the case in Golden State. I think there's quite a bit of space there, especially if Kuminga goes out and the only non-shooter in the starting lineup is really Draymond, who's a really good passer and sets Curry up all the time. So I think Markkanen could put up similar stats to what he was doing in Utah, having a bigger impact on the championship odds. But it's a lot to pay for a guy that's made one All-Star team and is due for another deal here.
Yeah, that's right. And then final piece of news, we sort of touched on this already when you took the Bucks as one of your big offseason winners, but the Bucks and free agent guard Gary Trent Jr., they agreed to a 1-year deal on Tuesday. He's just 25 years old, Gary Trent Jr., but he joins Milwaukee after spending 3.5 seasons there with the Raptors. Now, Trent exercised a player option to remain in Toronto for the 23-24 season, so last season, but he didn't receive an extension offer from the Raptors after this season, and the Bucks grab him on a vet minimum contract. And you already talked about it, Trey, so you thought, well done here by Milwaukee to go get some shooting in there.
It seems like he's probably going to start, and they're getting a starter for a veteran minimum, and it's a guy in Gary Trent Jr. who, though he was available for a veteran minimum, probably worth a little bit more, but the reality of the market is that the Bucks were able to get him for very, very cheap here. I've heard a lot of talk that Gary Trent Jr. is a lot better defender than Malik Beasley. He's a lot better player than Malik Beasley. Maybe that's true. but he might just be Malik Beasley all over. Malik Beasley was a great shooter last year for the Bucks. He tried really hard on defense. He couldn't guard anybody, and I think that that's the same with Gary Trent Jr., with the exception that Trent is a better steals guy than Beasley, which definitely helps, and he's younger as well. The Bucks needed a fifth starter, and they got a fifth starter, I think.
Yeah, good stuff there from Milwaukee to obviously grab him. And we've seen their other shooting guards in Grayson Allen, Malik Beasley. You know, they parlayed those roles with the Bucks into larger contracts in other places. So despite sort of maybe boofing this here, Gary Trent Jr. and his agent in terms of the extension and all that, maybe he'll have a good year in Milwaukee and maybe impress, and maybe he can turn that into a bigger deal, because he's only 25. That sort of blew my mind. It feels like Gary Trent Jr.'s been around a lot longer than that. All right, before we go, this is the Drop Podcast. Yeah, I'm on Zoom. Yeah, the guys are in the factory, but let's do a little rapid fire fun. There's only the three of us here, so I will also answer the questions. First one, Bronny James is a Summer League champion, at least when it comes to video games. The new Lakers guard won this year's Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 tournament on Encore after taking down Grant Williams and Bobby Clintman. The prize, besides bragging rights, was a custom-made COD championship belt as well as $10,000 prize. Guys, what old school video game would you crush NBA rookies at, Trey?
For me, it's NCAA Football 2003 on PlayStation. Joey Harrington on the cover. They just recently released NCAA Football 2025 for the first time since 2014. To me, I'm putting this as my choice, the 2003 edition, because I feel like that is my prime video game as an adult man. Like, I was probably better at some video games when I was a kid, but I mean, we used to skip class in college to spend an entire day coming up with names for our created schools. We would play years-long dynasties where we would spend full days recruiting made-up college students. We had jersey retirements, and we just hang the jerseys all around the dorm rooms. Good stuff. It is taking me back to see people playing this, because that's like all my For You feed is on X right now, is various highlights from FCS Midwest's kick returner. The guy's the Devin Hester of NCAA 2025. It looks awesome.
JD?
Yeah, I'm going all the way back to 1982. I was 11 years old, and this game, Tron, Deadly Discs for the Intellivision.
You are old.
I know, I'm so very, very old. And I was trying to remember what the gameplay was like. And I killed this game. I was awesome at it. And here's a little taste of it. And with the awesome sound effects. You're the red guy and you're just tossing around this deadly disc. And it's I love this game. I loved it, and looking at it now, I'm like, oh my God, my kids are so spoiled now. Like, you know what I mean? So, but yeah, that was like the most intense, exciting video game experience that I had up to that point. And I could kill anybody in that game. So yeah, put me down for Tron. Deadly Discs on the Intellivision system.
Wow.
Were there additional, like, Tron family of games? You know, like the light cycles or something like that?
No. The answer is no. I mean, I think that they may have released a light cycle type game. I think Snake or whatever that game may have had a problem with it. You know, they had, for the Intellivision, they had it was called Snafu.
Okay.
But it was that sort of thing where there was a trail behind you that you had to. But anyways, I was good at it, and this was the only thing. And at one point, the big robot comes out, and you have to battle that. Yeah, so it was very exciting stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. My answer for this, no surprise, NHL 94 on the Sega Genesis. And I like most of these games we picked. We would dominate these kids because they'd be like, where are the buttons? Where are all the buttons?
Yeah.
Why are there only 1 or 3 buttons or whatever it is? So good stuff there. All right, next one here. The New York Times has released their list of the 100 best books of the 21st century. They asked 503 literary luminaries, including authors, editors, librarians, critics, to share their top 10 books published in the U.S. since 2000 and tallied them up into the final list. It's a good list. if you hate hoops. I didn't see a single basketball book. So, guys, I want to know what basketball book, I guess from this century, should have made the list. Trey.
Yeah, I don't mean to brag, but I've read 5 of the top 100.
I had 5 as well.
A whopping 5%. Just a bunch of well-read gentlemen around here.
Yep.
Book I'm adding from the 21st century, I guess. Blood in the Garden by Chris Herring, 2022. That's been my favorite read recently as a basketball book. The story of the 1990s New York Knicks, which also kind of reads as a side story of the 1990s Chicago Bulls, since they ran into each other all those different times. So that's all I'm nominating.
Great pick.
Great
JD,
pick.
Where are you going?
Oh, I've so many basketball books that I have consumed. I don't want to step on your pick, Skeets, but I'm going to go Different Dude by Rod Benson.
Nice.
Yeah. It's this and Ethan Sherwin Strauss's Victory Machine. Those are the two basketball books that I've actually read. So I liked both of them, but lots of cool stories and a lot of not basketball stuff in Different Dude. So I hope I didn't step on your pick.
No, you
Skeets.
didn't. Those are great picks. There's a lot of really good basketball books.
Yeah.
I mean, there's another 10 we could name, but I'm going to go with a book called Pistol, The Life of Pete Maravich. I think it's from 2007, author Mark Kriegel. It's an awesome book, man. Like, I think it's also just an athlete I didn't know a lot about. And, man, Pete Maravich, he had a crazy, crazy upbringing with his dad. And it's about their rise as a family and then apparent ruin and then sort of redemption. And I couldn't put that book down. I thought it was fascinating. So go check out Pistol, The Life of Pete Maravich. It's quite a book. All right, finally, a week from today, the city of Paris, France will welcome the world to the 33rd edition of the Summer Olympics. The first post-pandemic games will include 329 medal events across 32 sports. We're all very excited. In fact, I'm so excited, I'm going to co-host a daily Olympics podcast with my wife, Nora, and super producer JD. It's called Summer of Champions. We're going to broadcast this live every night of the Olympics right here on YouTube. So to help get us in that spirit, I'm going to need you guys to name a random country, a random Olympic event, and a random Olympic athlete. Trey, get us started.
Didn't realize breaking was an Olympic sport this year.
Yeah.
A lot of great names in breakdancing, including Senorita Carlota from France, J Attack and Ray Gun from Australia, Logistics from the USA, 671 from China, just the number. But you're going to love this one, Skeets. My favorite name in the entire breaking competition from Canada, Phil Wizard.
This guy's awesome.
Phil Wizard?
Yeah.
Congratulations on making the Olympics, man. I didn't know you had it in you. I've seen you on a dance floor, but I'm sure you had to up your game to actually get selected for the national team.
I know. I'm just proud to represent my country. I'm jumping on a flight. As soon as I get negative COVID tests, I'll be over in Paris competing. Yeah, Phil Wizard. I was hoping you were going to say him.
Phil Wizard. That's too good.
Nice.
That's awesome. Logistics.
Logistics.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
With an X, of course.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, do you
now
think
I'm in.
they'll, like, on the broadcast, like, do you think they'll refer to them as their breaker names?
My guess is yes, because I was looking at the Olympics official website, and that's how they're all listed with their little headshots and stuff.
Okay, that's awesome.
671 taking the stage. Great.
I love it.
Yeah.
And JD, what do you got here?
Okay, well, there's no pickleball yet in the Olympics, so shout out to pickleball. But I'm going with the next best thing. I'm picking Scotland as a country.
Okay.
Kirsty Gilmore, badminton player. Now, the reason I'm going Scotland, first of all, the reason I'm going badminton is shout out to my wife, who was a provincial champ, badminton back in the day. And I'm picking Scotland because shout out to Peter Sawkins, guest on the show. He was the winner of the Great British Bake Off. Fan of this show, once baked a cake with the starters on it.
Yeah.
Big badminton guy. So I'm going with Kirsty. Here's a pic of her. She's just out there killing it. Now, listen. The truth be told, I am going to be rooting for Adam Dong of Canada, also playing badminton. But shout out to Scotland, Peter, Kirsty, and badminton as a sport.
Okay.
So there's
Good
a
stuff,
guy
guys.
named Adam Dong for Canada, and a guy who plays for the Philadelphia 76ers named Adem Bona.
Wow.
Identical names.
This is good.
Depending on your state of arousal.
Yeah. I like that you guys like approach this as like you answering all three in one, like JD did there. I was just like thinking, okay, random country, Mongolia.
Oh, okay.
I just went straight up Mongolia. Have you seen their kits?
Yeah,
No.
have a good look.
Oh, maybe going to be some of the best dressed at the opening ceremonies. I'm sure we'll talk about that on Friday's first Summer of Champions podcast. I went women's shot put
Okay.
for an event.
Sure.
Just chucking these balls.
Steven
how many
Adams,
meters.
his sister, right, was an Olympic shot
Yeah.
putter. Valerie, maybe something like that.
I think you're right. And my athlete, Mark Tewksbury.
Yeah.
A Canadian who won the gold in the 100-meter backstroke in the 92 Summer Olympics. Mark Tewksbury. It's one of those Olympic names that have always just stuck with me.
It's also a very Canadian name. Like like the hat, Tewksbury.
Yeah, Tewksbury. Yeah. So, good job. Summer of Champions starts a week from today. We're probably going to go live around, I don't know, what do we think, JD? 6, 7 o'clock
6 or
at
7.
night?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Something like that. We're going to try and do this 17 straight days, which sounds insane.
Well, yes. Speaking of pickleball, I realize that we're getting into the playoffs, so I may have to get Esh to come in or adjust the schedule on those days.
As in, like
I'm in the
pickleball league
playoffs. Yeah, like I'm in the playoffs.
Oh, you're
Yeah,
playing.
Yeah.
You're playing at 7 o'clock at night?
Yeah, it's a night league. Like it's a,
Oh, my
Under
God.
the
we'll
bright
figure
lights.
it out, though. Under the bright,
Okay.
I'm going to wither under those lights, man.
Jeez. All right. Well, we will figure it out. Very excited for the Summer of Champions podcast. We're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to go through like the biggest stories of the day. And there's going to be a lot of trivia. Nora's going to be testing my country knowledge, which I know nothing.
Oh, God.
So, yeah, we're going to have some fun. Excited for that. But let's call it there. Rapid fire, not so rapid. Hopefully another classic. I will say, JD, being on Zoom here,
Yeah.
when you play the rapid fire music, all hell breaks loose.
Oh, shit. Yeah.
On my end.
I was
Oh my
worried
God.
about that. You fought through it, though.
I was just plowing through it. I had no idea most of the time what you guys were saying, what I was
jeez.
saying, but we got there, I think.
Okay.
So thanks everybody for joining us live. Hit the like button, subscribe. Podcast listeners, leave us a 5-star rating and review. I think we'll be back at some point next week. Hey, look, maybe a Lauri Markkanen trade happens. I know we got some over-unders that are dropping. We could look at some early over-under picks, maybe, Trey.
You see
Anyway,
the
we'll
Bulls
figure
and
it
the
out.
Raptors line, Skeet?
What's that?
See the Bulls and the Raptors have basically the same line?
What is it?
Take a guess. Take a guess.
It's like going to be 32 and a half.
30.5 is the one. I
No,
saw.
30.5. Wow. I'm taking the over. Taking the over for both of them. All right, so maybe we'll do that. But anyways, make sure you subscribe so you know when your boys go live. Until we see you next time, Clipper Bros.
You heard it here first. Have a great time. Turn up. Love you guys. Awesome.
Thanks for joining us, and remember, in the Olympics, they call 3-on-3 basketball 3x3. 3x3.
Weird.
I don't know. They also call like online. I feel like instead of calling it 1-on-1, they call it 1v1.
Yeah.
These are not abbreviations I can get on board with.
No.
You're saving
it's
one
on.
letter.
It's always on to us. 3-on-3, 1-on-1. Embrace the weekend, people.